Okay, so I said in the last video that I was going to expand a little bit on that quote from Melvin Kranzberg in the slides. The technology is neither good nor bad, nor is it neutral. And the book talks about this stuff really effectively, in a short way, in boxes 1.4 and 1.5. So focus on that stuff. It's important to me, at least. And it's important to me because this is my field. This is the field I was trained in as a PhD. And those perspectives that are laid out there, those are fighting words in my field. Where I stand is I'm focused on users. So the three focuses that 1.5 talks about are, what are the inherent characteristics of the technology? That's important. What can it actually physically, in physics, do? How does it work? And how does it work has ethical implications. The example of TCP in the book is a perfect one. Two, what did the designers intend for it to be used for? That's what it's supposed to be used for. That's kind of dumb, I think. Though a lot of work in my field focuses on engineering teams, design teams, marketing teams, inside a company, what they think they're doing when they make something. So I think it's dumb, but a lot of people do that work. Three, how is it actually being used? That's what matters. So slide number 14 gives some real quick examples of that. But what I want to focus on are the slides that follow after 14 and more about users. Because there's users and there's users. And this is where some of the problems come into play. So, I'm designing a thing. Who am I going to design it for? Well, most inventions start off with, I really wish I had a thing that did this. And I make it. And I make it with the thought of, I wish I had something I could use. And that's called the reflexive user. That's a user who's just like me. Okay? We start there. That's fine. Problem is when we end there, because not all the world is just like me. So, we've got also got perspective users. All right, marketing says they want to design a phone for teenagers. I'm not a teenager. I would probably use a phone differently than somebody who's 14. So what am I going to do? At best, I'm going to do some market research with 14-year-olds. I'm going to see what they do, how they use the stuff they've got, think about what more things they could do if I add particular features, and design to them. Worst case, I will have some image of what a 14-year-old is like and what they do, and I'll design to that, and I'll probably be really wrong. The Bic for Her pens, great example of a prospective user that was done really badly. Okay. Next one is actual users. And actual users are often very, very different, and they use things in very different ways. For example, one of the biggest uses for the Model T automobile was as a generator to power appliances. Right. Henry Ford designs a car. Hey, I wish I had a car. Car would be great. I wish my workers could have cars, so I'm going to make some cheap cars. Great. What do they get used for? Well, they're a really reliable engine, and they can power stuff other than the car. So a lot of farmhouses hook them up to washing machines, electric lights, whatever, and use them as a generator. Henry Ford see that coming? Nope. But it was how users used it. And obviously, the folks who invented Twitter never saw the way Twitter's being used right now. Folks who invented Facebook have been caught with their pants down by how Facebook is being used right now. So actual users present a problem. Missing users is another big one. Missing users is who would like to use your product and can't. And that slide, which is slide number 19, is the Microsoft Kinect, which was a product that was released for the Xbox 10 years ago and is now canceled. So what did Microsoft do? They said, hey, we would like a motion sensor to power game controls. And they'll have some voice activation too. I'd like that. That'd be awesome. We think our users would like that too. Okay, so we'll design to what our users can use. Who are our users going to be? Well, they're going to be people who are mostly like us. So they're going to have big living rooms because we live in Seattle and we're making lots of money and we have big living rooms. And they're going to be pretty quiet because we live in single-family houses with no neighbors upstairs or downstairs. And they're going to take voice commands in standard Midwestern to Western sounding English, because that's what we got. So what happens when the Kinect comes out? You can't use it in a small apartment. You can't use it in a noisy apartment. It doesn't detect a lot of accents. So unless you sound like a white Silicon Valley engineer, it might not understand you very well. And also, it was always on. The camera was always on and it was always listening, which at the time was one of the first devices that did this. And people did not like the idea of that camera and that microphone potentially capturing everything that happened in your living room. So the device failed. Because of missing users, it didn't have as big a market as it could have. And because it was designed for an imagined user that didn't fit with who the actual users were. That's a design problem, but it's also an ethical problem. Because it's an ethical problem if people can't get access to your stuff who would like to use it. It's also an ethical problem if it does horrible things like listen to every single thing you say and maybe mine that data for advertising keywords, which you didn't tell your users about. So that's one concrete example of how technology, users, and ethics come together.